I want to get straight to our political panel. Lynda Tran is a Democratic strategist and a partner at 270 Strategies. She's in Washington, and so is CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris. And last but not least, we have Scottie Nell Hughes, who's in Nashville, Tennessee. Scottie is a political editor for RightsAlerts.com and a supporter of President Trump. So strong words from Judge Gorsuch. Let's go around the horn. I want to get each of your reactions to these criticisms from President Trump. How does this impact Gorsuch, and how does it impact the administration? First to you, Lynda.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that Gorsuch knows that he is in contention for a position that is going to last many, many decades. And I think it's probably him trying to show that he can stand on his own 2 feet. And ultimately, yes, while Donald Trump is the person who nominated him, he's going to have to make his own way in the world. And I think he's trying to start to give himself a little bit of distance there.
Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Lynda on this. We know that Democrats have suggested they want 60 votes to move Gorsuch forward in the Senate to get a vote eventually in the Senate. In order to get to 60, you need some Democrats. How do you get Democrats? Well, you show a little bit of independence from the man who nominated you, President Trump. And so I think this is an effort to do that. You're actually going to see Trump meet with some of these Democrats tomorrow, too, in an effort to try to sway them on the side of Gorsuch as well. So this, I think, is a big play toward getting to that number 60, the magic number 60 in the Senate.
Scottie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this might be a little bit less about politics and just being who Judge Gorsuch really is. He has been termed by both foe and friends as being an originalist. That means interpreting the Constitution as the founders say it. And I think this is something that he was just being honest. He does not necessarily agree with the president. And like us, we would not want to agree 100% with our politician. I think this it's not about actually playing and trying to get him confirmed. Rather, I think this is just him being honest with the American people and his feelings about President Trump and his appeal to the judiciary branch right now.
Steve, could Judge Gorsuch's willingness to criticize the president be something that actually helps sway Democrats towards his nomination?
We'll have to see. I mean, we've seen how polarizing Donald Trump's picks have been in this Senate. Democrats have not really accepted many of his picks en masse. And so this is a situation in which Democrats are still smarting what happened last year with Merrick Garland and that nominee of Obama not getting a hearing. And so there's a lot more to this than what Judge Gorsuch, I think, says in a meeting today. There's a lot of, I think, repair work that has to be done. Again, they need to pull in 10 Democrats to at least get this to a vote. It's just going to be interesting to see how this works out. I don't think this is the one thing that's going to do it. I think it's going to take a lot of work, and so we'll see.
You know, just to build out on what Scottie said, Lynda, does it seem to you that this, by Judge Gorsuch sort of coming out and saying the things that he said, that this is just sort of showing that the judiciary is independent, even though if you listen to the president's rhetoric or you follow his Twitter feed, it almost sounds in many instances that he obviously wants the judiciary to do what he wants them to do. But by having this judge criticize him, or at least call his rhetoric abhorrent, you're seeing that independent judiciary that is meant to be representative of this republic.
Well, you know, I can't imagine that that the president is particularly thrilled about the fact that the person that he nominated is in a kind of public fashion saying literally the opposite of what he said about the judiciary. But again, you know, as Steve said, this guy has got to get to 60, and he knows it. And even if you set aside the politics, even if you set aside maybe some concerns and hurt feelings that Democrats still have over Barack Obama's nominee not getting to the point where he even got a hearing, there are some significant policy issues that I think Democrats think are really troubling about Gorsuch, including, you know, the Hobby Lobby case, of course, and him essentially siding with corporations and saying that if they have a quote-unquote religious opposition to providing birth control for their employees, then they should be able to do so. There are real policy issues that I think are going to be at question when it comes to the point where he's before members of the Senate.
All right, let's talk Senator Jeff Sessions, who's been confirmed to be the next Attorney General. That happened just a short time ago. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I could think of no greater honor than to represent the people of Alabama in the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world. And that's what I feel about this body. I want to say I appreciate the full debate that we've had. I want to thank those who, after it all, found sufficient confidence in me to cast their vote to confirm me as the next Attorney General of the United States of America.
Steve, given the legal challenges the White House is facing right now, what's on the Attorney General's docket going forward?
Well, you named one of them, the travel ban, immigration generally. That's going to be a major issue that he's going to have to deal with. Civil rights issues, obviously going to be a big deal for him as well. The voter fraud situation. Donald Trump says he wants to have an investigation into what he thinks is voter fraud. That's going to come through the Justice Department at some point that I'm sure Sessions is going to have involvement in. And another issue which we don't talk a lot about but has come up a bit during the confirmation process is the legalization of marijuana and that happening more and more across the country. What is Sessions going to do about that? He's a pretty hardliner against that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the federal government and the Justice Department deals with that as it continues to become legal across the country and states.
Lynda, as you know, Democrats have staunchly opposed the installation of Senator Sessions as the Attorney General, but there are other confirmation votes on the way, including Health and Human Services Secretary Pick Tom Price and Labor Secretary nominee Andy Putster. Does this resistance continue? And if so, I mean, what are the end results? I mean, what ends are Democrats trying to achieve because they don't have a majority, as everybody knows, in both houses of Congress?
You know, I think there are a couple of things that are happening right now. I think that given all of the various protests that we've seen around the country, essentially since the day after Donald Trump's inauguration, there's certainly a sense from the people that Democrats in Congress represent that they want there to be a resistance to this particular administration, that they want there to be the people who are representing them fighting against some of these nominees and some of the issues that are concerning them and are forcing them out into the streets. So I think there is some value to that regard in having a very strong and united Democratic caucus that is opposing these nominees. The second thing is I think that these elected leaders feel like it is part of their responsibility to make sure there's a full airing of concerns around each of these nominees, even if at the end of the day the math doesn't add up and they aren't able to oppose the nominations once the process has played out.
Scottie, what do you think? I mean, look, Donald Trump did not win the popular vote. You're seeing these protests, as Lynda's pointing out, across the country with regards to the immigration ban. You saw the march on Washington right after the inauguration. There are many people on the other side, but a lot of Americans who say perhaps President Trump does not have a mandate in that he's coming into office with that honeymoon period that a lot of other presidents have.
Well, this is nothing new, Vlad. This is what you see every time you change an administration. The party in power wants to accomplish. The party not in power wants to resist to make sure nothing gets accomplished. It happens every single time. The problem is you have to have some strategy to it. And in this case, the Democrat strategy actually worked against them. If they would have confirmed, which we would have already known it's going to happen, the Republicans do have the numbers. If they would have confirmed Senator Jeff Sessions from the very beginning, guess what? Yesterday's vote, which was very important for the Secretary of Education, might not have happened when it was that close. We might be in a different situation. And the Democrats possibly could have claimed their first victory with defeating the Secretary of Education nominee. So, and you have to be careful as Democrats right now. I understand what they're doing. I know some people are possibly launching their bid for the next presidential campaign season. However it is, I understand they're trying to speak on behalf of their people, but they're about to cross a fine line to being an annoyance, to being not only annoying, but more importantly, to actually drawing back and actually hurting the American political system and actually hurting a type of fusion, almost an agreement on things that we can all agree on. When in the beginning, this is what our whole point was. We want to actually make our country come together, not continue this large divide.
Yeah, Lynda, I mean, there are a lot of Americans who say, look, Congress is dysfunctional. It has been for a long time, not just during President Obama's administration, but going back many, many years. And right now, given that the Republicans have a majority in the House, perhaps in some instances, it might make sense for the Democrats to play ball. Do you agree?
If there were issues that were before members of Congress that were aligned with their values and felt like they were in the interest of their constituents, I have no doubt that those Democratic leaders would want to work on them. But what we're seeing right now is not about America coming together. There are very, very significant issues about each and every one of these nominees. Those who've been confirmed, including Betsy DeVos, who said that schools ought to have guns in them so that children can protect themselves from grizzly bears, and did not have very simple knowledge when it pertained to laws that are already on the books that she's going to have to deal with, like laws that are meant to protect students with disabilities. These are significant and real concerns, and the fact that Democrats took a principled stand against them does not mean that there's no strategy. Secondly, eventually there's going to be another election, and the first round that's coming is going to be during the midterms, and some of these members who stood with these nominees who have very significant issues related to them are going to be held accountable for that. That's part of the strategy, absolutely.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Scottie. Go ahead.
Wouldn't the strategy be good, though? On things that you find, you have people like even Cory Booker said before that he likes school choice. We have him on the record. And other Democrats have said school choice can actually work well in some of these urban areas. Or the Affordable Care Act, where I think across the board, everybody agrees pre-existing conditions and staying on your parents' insurance plan until 26 are good things. Why not start building and at least find a foundation to work together on? Because right now, the American people doesn't like D.C., both Republicans and Democrats, and would be probably very happy cleaning house completely in 2018. So I think it's in their best interest that they actually find some common ground and build some success stories off of that.
Lynda?
It is absolutely in the best interest of the American people to find ground, and you're absolutely right. There are things that both Democrats and Republicans ought to be able to come together on, including making sure that the 20 million people who are currently covered under Obamacare continue to have that kind of access to care that they didn't have previously. Currently, what we've been discussing is completely repealing that and not having a plan in place to ensure that those people have coverage. So I don't think it's surprising at all that Democrats feel like we are in a very, very critical existential crisis for the country and are acting accordingly.
All right, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren. She was silenced by Mitch McConnell after reading a letter from Coretta Scott King that condemned Jeff Sessions. Our Nancy Cordes caught up with Warren earlier today on Capitol Hill. Take a listen.
Republicans say you're impugning the motives of one of your own colleagues, and that's forbidden by Senate rules.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the facts. And they seem to think that Jeff Sessions, because he is a senator, doesn't have to be examined the way anyone else would be who is nominated for Attorney General of the United States. Let's be clear. In reading Coretta Scott King's letter, she doesn't call names. She doesn't throw accusations. She just documents what actually happened. If I can, one of the things she documents, she says that if he is confirmed, he will be given life tenure for doing with a federal prosecution what the local sheriffs accomplished 20 years ago with clubs and cattle prods. She describes in here many elderly blacks were visited multiple times by the FBI, who then hauled them over 180 miles by bus to a grand jury in Mobile, when they could have more easily testified at a grand jury 20 miles away in Selma. The Republicans don't deny that any of this is accurate and that this is what Jeff Sessions did. They just think it was impolite for me to mention it.
All right, Steve. So, look, Senator Warren was reprimanded by the Senate. They invoked this Rule 19, which goes back many, many years. It was actually put in place after two senators got into a fist fight on the floor of the Senate back in 1901 or 1902, I think. And then afterwards, a lot of other senators went up there and read that letter, and they weren't reprimanded. So I guess perhaps you can explain to our audience why Elizabeth Warren and why not all the others.
Well, she was the first one to read it. And let's look at this from both sides. This whole episode is political. And if anybody wants to make an argument otherwise, feel free. But I don't see how Elizabeth Warren, who knows that this vote is going to go in the favor of the Republicans, thinks that she's going to change anybody's mind by reading this. She's going out there to make a political statement. And that's her right to do so as a senator during debate. And she's playing to a specific audience, which is Democrats who are fired up about this administration, fired up about the idea that Jeff Sessions is about to become the next Attorney General of the United States, and is playing to really Democrats who are looking to who are going to be the leaders of this party. And so she's sort of somewhat auditioning for that role. We saw Cory Booker do something similar during the Sessions confirmation hearings where he was one of the witnesses and sort of got a lot of play for that. Now, on the Republican side, to act as if Mitch McConnell isn't playing politics here would also be a mistake. He had to get up there and prove to his Republicans in the Senate and other Republicans that he is in charge of this whole process, and he can stand up to somebody like Elizabeth Warren. So, from somebody who's been watching a lot of this for a long time, I just think to me this is a very sort of well-orchestrated political show on behalf of McConnell and Warren. And I think anything else is really just, I don't know, it just seems to me that it's not much more than politics here.
Yeah, let's get a response real quick from our red and blue side. So, Lynda, political theater or principled stand?
Well, look, I think that there's definitely some element of political theater to everything that you're seeing happening, everything you're seeing playing out when it pertains to every single one of the nominees. But part of the case that Democrats have made against Jeff Sessions is that he is somebody who's been opposed to the Civil Rights Act. He is somebody who's called it intrusive, a burdensome piece of legislation. And he's somebody who, remember, just a couple of decades ago was blocked from the federal bench by a Senate committee that was staffed with both Democrats and Republicans. And part of what's powerful about Elizabeth Warren pulling out a letter by Coretta Scott King, besides stating the obvious that she was the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was also that this is a woman who knew Alabama, was able to have a firsthand account of how Jeff Sessions behaved when he was Attorney General of Alabama. And I think that in and of itself is a very important fact that she wanted to make sure was aired and in public.
Yeah, and Scottie, I mean, there are many people now who are looking at what happened, and they see an older man rebuking a woman, and now this is trending on social media. She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted. She persisted is trending on Twitter. People are using images of Harriet Tubman and Coretta Scott King and Rosa Parks to make the case that these other women throughout history, American history, have persisted as well. What do you think?
I think that's purely sexist to make it be the fact that we're going to give her any credit just because she's a woman. I think that's actually very sexist to look at because, as always, there's always the rest of the story. And I guess Coretta Scott King must have found forgiveness in her heart later on after she wrote that heart, as that the dedication of the Rosa Parks, both the library and the park, she thanked Senator Sessions for his role in creating it and really was grateful to him for the role he played in getting funding for the Rosa Parks. So obviously maybe she forgave, maybe Democrats down the road will also forgive Senator Sessions for whatever travesty that he's done against them. When in reality, I think there actually should be some apologies given to him because we have to have respect on the floor of the Senate, of the House, or else how can we expect each other to respect each other on Main Street?
All right, Lynda Tran, Steve Chaggaris, Scottie Nell Hughes. Great discussion. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.